Right now, nothing feels different. People are scrolling, working, sleeping. But behind closed doors, something dangerous is happening. NATO generals are watching radar screens. Russian command centers are on high alert. Ukraine has become the pressure point between two nuclear powers. And here's the scary part. World wars don't start with announcements. They start with one mistake, one missile that goes too far, one jet crossing the wrong line, one decision made in fear, not logic. If that happens, there will be no warning, no time to prepare, no second chance. In this video, we break down how close NATO, Russia, and Ukraine really are to global war, what that one mistake could be, and why the world may already be closer than anyone wants to admit. Stay till the end, because this is not theory anymore. The world standing on a thin line on the surface, today looks like any other day. People wake up, check their phones, go to work, plan their evenings. Cities are alive, traffic moves, cafes are full. Nothing feels different, but history doesn't announce itself when it's about to change. It moves quietly, behind closed doors, far away from everyday life. Right now, while the world feels normal, something fragile is holding everything together. A thin line of restraint between NATO, Russia, and Ukraine. And that line has never been weaker. A normal day on the surface, tension underneath modern global conflict, doesn't start with explosions in the streets. It starts with tension in rooms the public never sees. Deep inside military command centers, screens glow with live satellite feeds. Radar systems track aircraft by the second. Encrypted phones ring more often than usual. These aren't emergency moments, they're constant, because the Ukraine conflict never really sleeps. What makes this moment different is not what people see, but what decision makers feel. Pressure, uncertainty, fear of making the wrong call. Wars don't begin because someone wants chaos. They begin because someone believes they have no other choice. And right now, too many powerful people feel trapped by their own decisions. Why Ukraine became the center of a global power struggle. Ukraine is not just a country at war. It is the space where two worlds collide. For NATO, Ukraine represents security, influence, and the promise of expansion eastward, a way to prevent future threats by moving defenses closer to potential danger. For Russia, Ukraine represents history, identity, and survival. From Moscow's perspective, NATO moving closer isn't defense, it's encirclement. This isn't just about territory, it's about how close military power is allowed to get. Ukraine sits in the middle of that argument like a pressure point, and pressure points don't stay stable forever. Every weapon sent, every military exercise, every intelligence move tightens that pressure. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but steadily. NATO and Russia, why they cannot afford to back down in global politics. Backing down isn't just seen as weakness, it becomes precedent. If NATO appears hesitant, it risks losing credibility with allies. If Russia appears passive, it risks appearing vulnerable at home and abroad. This creates a dangerous loop. One side increases readiness to avoid looking weak, the other responds to avoid falling behind. And suddenly, both are preparing for a war neither claims to want. What makes this worse is time pressure. Decisions today are made in minutes, not days. Alerts arrive incomplete, information is uncertain, and leaders must choose between acting too fast or too late. There is no perfect option, only consequences. The meaning of one mistake in modern warfare. When people hear one mistake, they imagine something dramatic, a deliberate strike, a bold decision. The reality is far more frightening. A mistake today could be a radar misreading an aircraft, a drone crossing an invisible line, a missile test misunderstood, a cyber attack blamed on the wrong actor, a delayed message in a command chain. Modern weapons move faster than human judgment, and modern wars don't wait for confirmation. Once a response is triggered, it becomes harder to stop than to continue. That's what makes this moment so dangerous. Not hatred, not ambition, but speed. Narrator, lower, reflective tone. History shows us something uncomfortable. The most catastrophic events don't happen when people expect them. They happen when people believe everything is still under control. Right now, the world is balanced on restraint, communication, and luck. And luck is not a strategy, because when mistakes happen at this level, history doesn't pause to ask for permission. It changes. How one small error can turn into global war. When people imagine the start of a global war, they picture a deliberate decision, a leader choosing chaos over peace. But history tells a different story. The most dangerous wars don't begin with intention. They begin with error. And in the modern world, errors don't stay small for long. How modern wars start without warnings. There is no formal declaration anymore. No official announcement, no countdown on television. Today, wars begin in silence. A radar alert appears for a few seconds too long. A drone enters airspace it shouldn't. A missile launch looks like an attack instead of a test. A cyber intrusion shuts down a system at the worst possible moment. By the time the public hears anything, decisions have already been made. This is the reality of modern warfare. Events move faster than explanations. And when nuclear-armed powers are involved, speed becomes the enemy of reason. The most dangerous scenarios between NATO, Russia, and Ukraine. In the current environment, there are several situations where a single incident could spiral out of control. Airspace violations are one of the most dangerous. Military aircraft from different sides operate extremely close to each other. A split-second decision by a pilot, driven by fear, training, or confusion, could result in a jet being shot down. At sea, naval forces shadow each other constantly. Submarines move silently. Destroyers track targets they never fire at, until one day they do. Then there is the battlefield itself. Missiles, drones, and artillery don't always behave as planned. A weapon can land slightly off target. A strike meant for one position can be interpreted as an escalation, and interpretation matters more than intent. When fear replaces logic in war rooms inside command centers, leaders don't see the full picture. They see fragments, radar signals, intelligence reports, partial confirmations, urgent warnings. They must decide quickly because waiting too long can be just as fatal as acting too fast. This is where fear enters the process. Not fear of war, fear of being unprepared, fear of losing credibility, fear of being attacked second instead of first, fear of explaining inaction after disaster strikes. When fear replaces logic, escalation becomes easier than restraint. And once the first response is launched, it creates pressure for the next one. The domino effect. No one can stop. This is how a single mistake becomes global. One incident triggers retaliation. Retaliation activates alliances. Alliances pull in nations that never wanted war. Airspace closes. Cyber attacks multiply. Markets crash. Communication becomes unstable. At this stage, no single country controls the situation anymore. Even leaders who want to stop the conflict are trapped by momentum. Pulling back looks like surrender. Standing still looks like weakness. So the war continues, not because anyone planned it, but because no one can safely stop it. Narrator, quiet, reflective tone. This is the most dangerous phase of any conflict, the moment where control slips away, not through hatred, not through ideology, but through systems designed to react faster than humans can think. From this point forward, every decision is made under pressure. Every move risks escalation, and every mistake costs more than the last. And once that line is crossed, the world enters a phase where consequences are no longer theoretical. They become real. If the line is crossed, what happens next? If the line is crossed, what happens next? Narrator, calm but heavier tone. When the line is finally crossed, there is no single moment where the world stops and realizes what just happened. There is no pause, no silence. Things simply begin to change, fast. And most people won't understand what's happening until it's already too late. The first signs the world has entered a new war. The first signs don't look like explosions, they look like disruptions. Airspace closures begin quietly. Flights are suddenly delayed, diverted, or canceled without explanation. Governments issue vague statements about security concerns. At the same time, something else starts happening. Internet speeds slow down. Certain websites stop loading. Social media platforms behave strangely. Rumors spread faster than facts. Markets react instantly. Stock prices drop within minutes. Oil prices spike. Currencies fluctuate wildly. People sense something is wrong, but no one says the word war out loud. Yet, how ordinary people experience the first phase for ordinary people. The beginning of global conflict feels confusing rather than dramatic. Phones buzz with half-verified alerts. Friends send messages asking if you've heard the news. News channels interrupt regular programming but offer little clarity. Panic doesn't arrive all at once. It builds. Supermarkets grow crowded. Fuel stations see long lines. People withdraw cash just in case. The fear isn't explosive. It's quiet and uncertain. And uncertainty is more powerful than panic. Because when people don't know what's happening, they imagine the worst. Why the nuclear threat changes everything. At some point, the word nuclear enters the conversation. Not because weapons have been launched, but because readiness levels change. This is where everything becomes heavier. Nuclear readiness doesn't mean nuclear war. It means leaders are preparing for the possibility that restraint may fail. Missile systems are put on alert. Submarines receive coded instructions. Defense systems are activated and tested. This creates a terrifying paradox. No side wants to be the first to launch, but no side wants to be unprepared if the other does, so everyone prepares. And preparation itself increases fear. The closer nuclear forces move to readiness, the smaller the margin for error becomes. The psychological weight on decision-makers behind closed doors. Leaders face impossible choices. Every option carries risk. Every delay carries danger. Every action could be misunderstood. They are forced to think not in terms of victory, but survival. And survival decisions are rarely clean or rational. This is the moment where human judgment matters more than technology, and where human weakness becomes the greatest risk. History has shown that nuclear war has nearly started before, not because of intent, but because of misunderstanding. That reality still exists. A world holding its breath as hours pass, the world enters a strange state. Life continues, but differently. People still go to work, still check their phones, still talk about normal things. Yet beneath it all, there is a shared, unspoken fear. A sense that something irreversible may be unfolding. This is the stage where the future hasn't collapsed yet, but it feels fragile. And everyone is waiting to see whether restraint will hold, or whether the next mistake will push the world past the point of no return. Narrator, slow, reflective, close. The most dangerous moment in human history is not war itself. It is the moment just before it becomes unstoppable. Right now, the world exists in that moment. Not doomed, not safe, just one decision away from either. The most dangerous moment in human history is not war itself. It is the moment just before it becomes unstoppable. Right now, the world exists in that moment. Not doomed, not safe, just one decision away from either.